Thank you, Jan. My name is Bill Van Nostran. I'm recently retired pastor of First Presbyterian Church in Astoria. I'm really honored to be nominated for your consideration today and really intrigued by the concept of women in the community banding together because we can all do more than any one of us. I'm also very proud to represent Copeland Commons to you today, as well as to have you know the love of my life, Yvonne. She's only been under contract for 45 years. In the winter of 2017, Clatsop County hosted its first Place Matters forum at the fairground. And the keynote speaker for that event was the public health director for the city of Philadelphia. And the keynote speaker made three statements that changed the life of First Presbyterian Church Astoria. First and foremost, she said, safe and dry housing is a basic determinant of public health. Seems obvious once you state it, but when we think of public health, we think of safe drinking water, safe restaurants, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, of course, safe and dry housing is a basic determinant of public health. Second thing she said is the vitality of a community is inversely proportional to the vacancy rate downtown. In other words, if you have a lot of vacant buildings in your downtown corridor, the vibrancy and the perseverance of your community is seriously in jeopardy. The third thing she said is, housing is important and your local governments are not going to be able to do it by themselves. So, a group of a dozen or so members of the church and I sat together and said, how could we make a material impact in the housing shortage, especially here on the coast? Who of us doesn't know somebody who had to close their restaurant early because they didn't have enough workers, or didn't have enough servers, or didn't have enough kitchen staff, or there weren't enough people in the emergency room that day because we can't house any nurses from Portland to come out and take our positions at CMH. So we thought about workforce housing. Several of the people that I mentioned are not the kind who can afford first and last month's rent at market rates, plus a damage deposit. And so what if there was a subsidized opportunity down in the historical corridor, business district, where people could rent a studio or a one-bedroom or a two-bedroom apartment, maybe until they got their feet on the ground, and they could save up for the down payment or the damage deposit, and they could step up to a market rate apartment or find a house, God forbid. So we set about I stepped out of the camera. Hi. We stepped out into the community, and under the guidance of Dick Garner, God rest his soul, former city council person Dick Garner, 2 minutes. We identified a short list of places that might satisfy our need. And this is what we came up with. This is the artist's rendering of, this is the 4-story building across from the Sears Sears home store, and where vintage hardware used to be. And the Malternative pawn shop was in the retail space. It used to be, in 1922, a boarding house for assembly line workers to come from the tuna canneries, and they could come across the street and stay the night for a nickel. But it's a long time since any of these rooms have ever been occupied. And also the east side parking lot came with the purchase. So our goal is to reclaim this historical treasure in the downtown corridor and add a second building so that we could come up with about 60 plus affordable units. As you can imagine, it's going to take 21 million to do that project. And so for you ladies to contemplate 21 million is not the point. But I am compelled by the argument that when and if our competitive application is ready to be submitted to the Salem office that brokers the national HUD housing funds that will pay for the lion's share of this, one of the most important things that we have to have is a broad commitment of community support. And so I come to you today, ask you to think about workforce housing. Win or lose, please take one of these cards from the card table out in front. It explains our mailing address and that we are a nonprofit public benefit corporation separate from the church. Thanks very much. I want to respect this opportunity as best I can.
We can have questions for 2 minutes.
Great. Christy.
What would you do with the funds if you're awarded them today?
Oh, yeah, and that was really important. So, in order for us to be prepared to submit this exhaustive application to the Salem office, Oregon Housing and Community Services, we need to have some foundational studies completed so that they're assured that, number one, we have full ownership of the property. Number two, the structure is sound. Number three, there's no environmental hazard left over from the fire or the buried oil drums, or there's no dugout canoe or arrowheads. And it was interesting to have that conversation with the engineer, because when the indigenous people lived on the coast of the river at that time, the coast was up on Exchange in Franklin. We're on Phil. So there weren't any archaeological things. So we've completed the structural study. We've completed the environmental study. The next study is we have to make it earthquake worthy. In 1922, there was no requirement to make your building seismically fit. And so our developer tells me that it's going to cost upwards of $15,000 to complete the seismic study and make the recommendations about what strapping there needs to be in the foundation. You know, I'm just a pastor. I don't know anything about this. But what we hope to be is a catalyst for housing. Surround ourselves with the people who do know about this stuff, and then attract the necessary funds so that we can make 60 units available and preserve the community character.
Bill, can you mention about Garver? Because I think that's important. That's a good connection.
Right. So Julie Garver with Innovative Housing, Inc., the successful developer of the Merwin Hotel, is our developer. She has a real heart for historical treasures like this one. And if they had two buildings in town, they could better create a cash flow so that they could have live-in managers and support both complexes. Because there's 40 units at the Merwin, there'd be 60 units here. It'd be easier to spread the costs over 100 units. I'm way over my time. Thank you for your indulgence. Please take one of these cards.